These small critters are embarking on a big move. Nearly 200 million red crabs are making their annual migration back to the ocean, crossing Christmas Island.
On a faraway island full of millions of red crabs, a tiny but dangerous enemy had been spreading quietly for years. Small, aggressive ants that could wipe out the crabs very fast. Scientists and people trying to protect the island had a choice: do something or watch the whole ecosystem die. The plan they picked was bold. Almost hard to believe millions of ant-eating animals were let loose across the island.
Tens of millions of red crabs crawling their way to the ocean as part of an annual migration on Christmas Island, Australia.
They started hunting right away. The results were surprising and almost immediate. Could using one species to fight another save the island or make things worse? Join us in this video as we discuss the details. The instant change on Crab Island after the release of ant killers. Christmas Island is known for one of the most amazing natural events on Earth: the yearly red crab migration. Every wet season, millions of bright red crabs leave their forest homes and move toward the ocean to breed. The sight is so large and so intense that the island almost looks painted red. Roads shut down. People help the crabs cross safely, and the entire ecosystem depends on them. These crabs clean the forest floor, eat fallen leaves, control new plant growth, and keep the balance of the rainforest. For many years, this balance was nearly destroyed because of an invasive species called the yellow crazy ant. These ants arrived on the island in the early 1900s, likely traveling inside cargo shipments. On Christmas Island, they had no natural enemies. They multiplied fast and created huge super colonies that stretched across hundreds of acres. In some places, there were more than 1,000 ants covering a single square meter of ground. As their numbers grew, they began killing red crabs in shocking amounts. Yellow crazy ants use a powerful weapon: formic acid. They spray this acid into a crab's eyes and joints, blinding and paralyzing it. When a crab loses its sight and cannot move, the ants swarm over it and tear it apart. Entire paths of the island that were once full of moving red crabs turned into graveyards. Scientists estimated that the ants killed between 10 and 15 million crabs, nearly 1/3 of the total population. When the crabs died, the rainforest began to suffer. Leaves piled up, seedlings grew too thick, and the forest floor changed completely. Other animals like birds, reptiles, and small mammals also suffered because the ants sprayed acid at anything they viewed as a threat. At first, park rangers tried to control the ants with poison bait. The bait worked for a short time, lowering ant numbers in certain areas. But soon, ants from untreated locations moved back in, rebuilding the colonies. This meant workers had to spread poison again and again, which cost time, money, and effort. It became clear that this was not a permanent solution. The ants kept coming back stronger each year. Scientists discovered something very important about the ants. They relied heavily on another invasive species called the yellow lac scale insect. These tiny insects attach themselves to trees and drink sap. While feeding, they release a sweet liquid called honeydew, which is the main food source for yellow crazy ants. The ants protect the scale insects because they need the honeydew to survive. When researchers separated the ants from the scale insects in studies, ant activity dropped by 95% in only a few weeks. This showed that controlling the scale insect population could weaken the ant colonies. Experts searched for a natural enemy of the scale insects in Southeast Asia, the area where the ants originally came from. They discovered a very small parasitic wasp that attacks only the yellow lac scale insect. This wasp lays its eggs inside the scale insect, and when the eggs hatch, the larvae kill the scale from the inside. The wasp does not attack any other insect, plant, or animal. After careful testing to make sure it was safe, scientists brought 167 of these wasps from Malaysia to Christmas Island rangers, built special breeding areas to grow the wasp population. They planted the types of trees that scale insects prefer and allowed the wasps to lay eggs. Within a year, thousands of wasps were ready to be released. In 2017, the first wave, about 8,000 wasps, was released across several major ant-infested zones. More were bred and released in the following months. Teams set up monitoring stations to check ant numbers, scale insect levels, and forest conditions. Over the next 2 years, results were clear. The forest also began to recover. Leaf litter decreased to normal levels, plant diversity increased, and other native animals returned. Gardens and farms showed healthier growth because scale insects were no longer damaging trees. Although the ants still exist on parts of the island, they are now controlled instead of dominating the ecosystem. Ongoing monitoring, targeted baiting, and more wasp releases continue to keep their numbers manageable. This effort shows how a very small creature, used carefully and responsibly, helped restore balance to an entire island. What happens when one small island becomes the center of a struggle for survival, where even nature's strongest instincts are no longer enough? Stay tuned for more. The struggle of the red and blue crabs. Christmas Island is located far out in the Indian Ocean. It sits about 217 miles south of Java and roughly 1,600 miles northwest of Perth, Australia. The island is actually the very top of a huge underwater mountain nearly 3 miles tall, but only about 1,180 feet of it rises above the surface. Because of this isolated position, the island developed its own special ecosystem with plants and animals that cannot be found anywhere else in the world. One of the most important of these animals is the red land crab, a creature that plays a major role in shaping the forest and keeping the island healthy. The decline of red crabs brings many disadvantages for Christmas Island. The red crabs are considered a keystone species, meaning they are at the center of how the island's environment functions. Their daily behavior is very important. They eat fallen leaves, seedlings, fruits, and small plants on the forest floor. By doing this, they prevent the ground from becoming covered with thick layers of leaves. This helps control humidity, keeps the soil healthy, and gives room for the right kinds of plants to grow. When there are enough crabs, the forest stays open, clean, and balanced. But when the crabs die, everything begins to change. Without the crabs eating the leaves, the forest floor becomes crowded with plant material. This causes the ground to stay wetter for longer and changes the temperature under the trees. New seedlings start to grow in very large numbers, forming a thick undergrowth that was never there before. Scientists say that even though the forest may look green and full, this new growth is a sign of stress. It reduces the variety of plants, gives space for weeds to spread, and makes the forest less stable. The loss of crabs also affects other animals. Birds, reptiles, and small mammals lose parts of their habitat as the forest becomes too thick. The soil becomes weaker and easier for invasive species, such as giant African snails, to move in. These snails feed on plants and spread even more quickly in places where the natural balance has been disturbed. Over time, the death of crabs can completely change how the island functions. Alongside the red crabs, Christmas Island is home to another species, the blue crabs. These crabs are bigger and sit higher in the food chain. Unlike the red crabs, their migration is not well known because their trip to the sea is much shorter. Most of the island's streams lie close to the coast, so blue crabs do not need to travel long distances to breed. Their movements often go unnoticed by visitors, and even many locals rarely see them migrate. Blue crabs also feed on plant material, but they are strong enough to sometimes hunt red crabs as well. Even though they are powerful creatures, they still depend heavily on the environment staying stable. They need fresh water at least once every day, which means they are sensitive to changes in the landscape. When ants take over areas where blue crabs live, these crabs face the same danger as the red crabs. The ants' acid attack can kill them, and as red crab numbers fall, the entire natural system becomes weaker. This also puts pressure on blue crabs, because their habitat and food supply become less predictable. In summary, Christmas Island's remote location makes it home to unique life, but it also makes the island very fragile. The death of red crabs harms the forest, reduces plant diversity, invites invasive species, and affects all layers of wildlife. The blue crabs, strong as they are, still depend on the same environment and suffer when the balance is lost. Protecting both crab species is essential for the future health of Christmas Island. If invasive species can wreak havoc on isolated ecosystems like Christmas Island, what happens when similar invaders reach the busy and interconnected coasts of the United States? Let's delve deeper. The invasion of the European green crab. Along the coasts of the United States, there is a problem that is growing bigger and bigger every year. It is not just one small problem that can be ignored. It is happening in many places at the same time, and it is caused by crabs. Yes, crabs. But these are not ordinary crabs. They are small, and at first glance, they might look harmless. Yet, they are creating huge problems for the environment, for local communities, for fisheries, and even for the economy. This problem is caused by both foreign crabs, which are crabs that came from other parts of the world, and native crabs, which are crabs that are supposed to live in these areas naturally. When these two forces interact, the results can be disastrous. One of the worst of these invaders is called the European green crab. Its scientific name is Carcinus mayanus. These crabs are small in size. They are about the size of a human hand. Because of their small size, many people might think they are harmless or easy to control. But that is far from the truth. These crabs are strong, very clever, and they have a very high ability to survive in different conditions. They are extremely adaptable. Green crabs can live in salty water, which is the normal water of the ocean. They can also live in brackish water, which is water that is only slightly salty, such as the water near estuaries where rivers meet the ocean. They can survive in very cold water and in very warm water. This makes them extremely flexible. Their ability to survive in such different environments means that they can appear almost anywhere along the coast. This adaptability makes them very difficult to control. Green crabs are also very good at reproducing. Each female green crab can lay up to 180,000 eggs in just one breeding season. That is a huge number. Because of this, the population of green crabs grows very quickly. In just a few generations, there can be millions of crabs, and they spread across large areas of coastline. This rapid reproduction makes it very difficult for humans to keep up with the invasion. Even when crabs are caught in large numbers, they can quickly reproduce and restore their population. Green crabs are not native to the United States. They originally come from the Nordic seas and the Mediterranean seas in Europe. They were brought to the U.S. accidentally. They traveled hidden in the ballast water of cargo ships that cross the Atlantic Ocean. Ballast water is water that ships carry to keep the ship balanced. It is taken in at one port and released at another. In this way, the crabs came from Europe to the United States without anyone noticing. Once they arrived, they began to spread along the coastline. They were first seen along the East Coast and then moved down to Florida. Later, they spread to the West Coast, including places like New England and California. This spread was helped by their small size, adaptability, and high reproductive rate. Fishermen have tried to catch green crabs to reduce their numbers. They use heavy steel traps, sometimes weighing tens of kilograms. When these traps are put into the water and pulled up after a few hours, hundreds of crabs can be caught at once. The deck of the boat becomes a moving, wriggling mass of crabs. It can be difficult for the fishermen to manage. They must work carefully, because slipping or losing control of the traps can be dangerous. But even catching hundreds or thousands of crabs does not solve the problem. The green crabs reproduce too quickly, and soon the population grows back to the same numbers or even higher. The invasion of green crabs is creating huge economic problems for the United States. Scientists estimate that it costs the country about $22.6 million every year due to damage to fisheries, ecosystems, and the costs of control programs. To try to fight this invasion, scientists and communities are exploring many solutions. Scientists are testing chemicals called pheromones that can interfere with the crab's reproductive cycles. If successful, this could reduce the number of eggs laid by female crabs and slow their population growth. Drones and sonar are being used to detect crab nests in areas that are difficult to access. Artificial intelligence programs are being developed to predict where green crabs might spread next. This can help scientists and local authorities plan control measures before the crabs arrive. At the same time, local communities are involved in removal campaigns. Fishermen, students, volunteers, and conservation groups work together to catch crabs and remove them from critical areas. Some programs have even started turning green crabs into food. The crabs are cooked in soups, seafood dishes, and broths. Some chefs have promoted the green crab as a new flavor that people should try in order to help save the oceans. This approach has two benefits. It reduces the number of crabs in the wild, and it creates economic opportunities for local communities. However, some scientists are concerned. They worry that if green crabs become a common food product, people may start relying on them for income. This could unintentionally encourage people to spread the crabs instead of controlling them, making the invasion worse. If foreign crabs are spreading uncontrollably along the U.S. coasts, what happens to the native crabs that have relied on these waters for generations? Let's learn more. The collapse of native snow crabs and human impact. While foreign crabs like the green crab are spreading, native crabs are dying because of environmental changes. One such is the snow crab, mainly known as Chionoecetes opilio. In just one winter in 2022, billions of snow crabs went away. For many years, this part has been home to a big population of crabs, making it one of the world's richest fishing grounds. However, the snow crabs found it hard to survive due to environmental changes brought on by climatic changes. The Bering Sea's water warmed a lot. The ice that always developed to keep the water layers cool and protect the crabs melted too soon. These layers of cold water are important to the survival of snow crabs. They faced hunger and the heat without them. Scientists estimate that over 10 billion snow crabs were wiped out in that one winter. The loss of snow crabs created a cascade of problems for humans as well. Fishing boats could not go out to sea. Fishing licenses were canceled. Many families lost their main source of income. The entire snow crab fishing season was canceled, which caused about $1 billion in economic losses. Prices for seafood rose sharply. High-end restaurants could not get enough crab to meet demand. Thousands of workers in fisheries, processing plants, and related industries lost their jobs. Communities that depended on snow crabs were devastated economically and socially. This situation shows a strange and worrying pattern. The green crab, a foreign species, grows and spreads very quickly. It reproduces in huge numbers and damages ecosystems. The snow crab, a native species, can die quickly because of small changes in the environment. Human activity, like global trade and climate change, has worsened these problems. By transporting foreign species across oceans, humans have created new invaders. By warming the oceans, humans have made it difficult for native species to survive. These actions have created a paradox. One species grows endlessly and damages the environment, while another, once abundant species, struggles to survive and disappears. The green crab invasion and the collapse of snow crab populations are strong examples of how even small creatures can have a big impact. They show the weak nature of ecosystems and the unexpected result of human activity. Many people may be unaware that little crabs have the power to change the whole ecosystems, hurt regional economies, and endanger the food supply. The lessons are clear. In order to stop invasive species and keep native species, humans must carefully monitor ecosystems, plan interventions, and take the right action. Coastal ecosystems and local economies will continue to suffer in the absence of proper management. The problem is still present. Snow crabs are still in danger due to environmental changes, while green crabs are still spreading. Governments, scientists, and communities must join hands to create a safe and active solutions. This calls for careful planning, public awareness, long-term monitoring, and the use of new technology. The story of these crabs shows that environmental issues are not always direct. Even very small animals can have huge effects on nature and human life. In conclusion, the situation along the U.S. coasts is both urgent and complicated. The green crab invasion continues to grow, causing environmental damage and economic loss. The fall in snow crab populations serves as a reminder of how sensitive native animals are to climate change. When taken as a whole, these problems show how human activity has put the oceans at risk. It is important to protect native species, manage intruders, and understand the effects of human activity. Small creatures, like crabs, can cause big problems, and careful planning and action are needed to protect both nature and people. If humans can have such a big impact on coastal ecosystems and the creatures that live there, what happens on a remote island where nature runs mostly on its own, untouched by people? Let's find out. The red crab gardeners of Christmas Island. There are more than 100 million red crabs on Christmas Island, a quiet, tropical island far from popular areas and big towns. That is a big number that is hard to understand. It would take forever to count them one by one. Indeed, these crabs are not so big. They are barely the size of a human hand. You may believe that they are limited in what they can do due to their little size. You may believe that they are not important or weak. However, that is not at all true. The island, the vegetation, and even the soil depend heavily on these red crabs. They keep the island's cleanliness and health, much like little gardeners. These red crabs roam the forest every day. They help to choose which plants will grow and which won't by eating seeds and young seedlings. Although it may seem direct, this is important. Red crabs dig as well. They dig underground burrows. They shift the earth when they dig. This isn't only haphazard research. This work is crucial. The burrows improve plant growth by allowing air to enter the soil. The soil stays moist because the burrows allow water to enter the earth, rather than simply flow off. Also, the crabs leave behind their drops, which functions as fertilizer in the soil. The nutrients that the droppings provide to the soil strengthen and improve the health of the plants. Thus, the red crabs walk, eat, dig, and fertilize on a daily basis. They are little laborers who keep the health and strength of the forest. Even though they mostly eat plants, red crabs are not only herbivores, they will eat meat too. Scientists and observers have seen red crabs eating small animals like birds, other crabs, and even rats, if they can find them. They are scavengers. They eat whatever is available. And they are also cannibals, which means they sometimes eat each other. The bigger crabs will eat the smaller crabs. This might seem harsh or cruel, but it is natural. This is how nature works, and it helps keep the crab population balanced in their environment. Christmas Island is also home to other types of crabs. One of the most famous is the giant coconut crab. These crabs are much bigger than the red crabs. Some of them can live for up to 60 years. They can eat meat, especially red crabs if given the chance, and they are very powerful. The island is home to a lot of creatures, as seen by the presence of both big coconut crabs and red crabs. Rare red crabs exist that are not the typical shade of red. These crabs are quite uncommon and come in orange and purple varieties. One crab out of every 100 million may have a different color. This shows how rare the island is and how so many life can be there. If red crabs play such an important role in keeping Christmas Island's forests alive and balanced, how do they survive the dangers from other species and the challenges of their unique environment? Stay tuned for more. Threats, habitat, and the importance of red crabs. The island itself is also very interesting and unique. It is of volcanic origin, which means it was formed a long time ago from a volcano. The land rises quickly from the sea into cliffs, and then higher into hills and small mountains. The highest point is 361 meters above sea level. The forest is dense and tropical, with lots of trees, plants, and other animals. Around 63% of the island is protected as a national park. This helps keep the environment safe and the wildlife undisturbed. A small number of people live on the island, about 2,000 residents. These people live in small towns and communities, and they have a mix of cultures. They are friendly and respectful of the natural environment, which helps the crabs and other wildlife survive. The climate on Christmas Island is mostly warm and humid. The temperature does not change much, usually staying between 23 degrees Celsius and 30 degrees Celsius. The humidity is high, which helps the crabs stay moist. Crabs need moisture to survive because they have gills, even though they live on land. If they get too dry, they can die. So, the tropical climate of the island is perfect for them. The red crabs are not just important for the forest. They also have scientific and educational value. Researchers come to the island to study them. Scientists can learn a lot about ecology, animal behavior, and how ecosystems work by studying red crabs. The island serves as an outdoor laboratory for learning about nature because of the crabs' habits, eating habits, burrowing habits, and interactions with other species. Because they show genetic diversity, which is important for the population's long-term health, the rare orange and purple crabs also draw notice. To put it simply, red crabs on Christmas Island are much more than simply tiny creatures. They cannibalize and are opportunistic feeders, which helps organically regulate their population. The island is ideal for them due to its volcanic origin, high cliffs, lush woods, and warm climate, but it also has a weak environment that needs to be carefully protected. Red crab protection is crucial to keeping the equilibrium of the island's ecosystems. They keep the health of the soil, encourage plant growth, and guarantee the normal operation of the food web. They are also useful for studying ecosystems and doing scientific studies. Without them, the island's biodiversity would be in danger. Alien species may take over, and the forest would become less healthy. Despite their diminutive size, these crabs have a significant influence, showing how small animals may seriously alter their surroundings. The red crabs of Christmas Island serve as a reminder that all species are important in the natural world. Large-scale life can be kept, and the environment shaped by even tiny organisms. They are important members of a complex ecosystem, cleansers and gardeners. Their survival depends on careful management, protection from invasive species, and continued research. By understanding and protecting red crabs, humans can help ensure that this unique tropical island remains a vibrant and balanced ecosystem for generations to come. If red crabs can shape an entire island's ecosystem, how could a single invasive species wreak havoc on an entire country's coastal waters? Let's take a closer look. Italy's blue crab invasion. A hidden threat emerges. Near Venice, in the shallow waters of the Scarol di Vari lagoon, something unusual is happening. Fishermen who have long caught clams for Italy's famous spaghetti vong are facing a new problem. A type of blue crab called Calanassa sapotidus has arrived from the east coast of America. These crabs traveled over 4,000 miles and quietly lived in Mediterranean waters for decades, first spotted in 1949. They stayed hidden, breeding slowly, until the right conditions allowed them to spread quickly. One morning, fishermen found their nets full of these aggressive blue crabs instead of clams in the Scardivari lagoon. Up to 90% of young clams were eaten. The Po River Delta, which normally produces 15,000 tons of clams each year, was badly affected. Families who had worked in the shellfish business for generations saw their work destroyed. These blue crabs are not ordinary animals. Each female can produce up to 2 million eggs, and in Mediterranean waters, they grow and reproduce faster than in their original habitat. Even capturing hundreds of tons of crabs could not stop them. Climate change made it worse. Warmer waters and higher salinity helped the crabs survive and spread. They eat almost anything, destroy habitats, and reduce the chances of other species surviving. The crabs also change the environment. Their movement stirs up sediment, making the water cloudy and blocking sunlight. This hurts algae and seagrass, which are needed for the food chain. Female crabs place themselves in canals and lagoons strategically to increase survival for their young. These crabs are precise, not random. They target the most important areas of the ecosystem, making it hard for other marine life to recover. A second species, Portunus segnus, entered through the Suez Canal, and now the two species are beginning to live in the same areas. Scientists discovered that both species arrived mostly through ballast water in ships, showing how human activity helps invasive species spread. With no natural predators in the Mediterranean, these blue crabs have created a serious ecological and economic problem. Even if most are caught, the small number that remains can quickly rebuild the population. Italy is facing a huge challenge. The blue crab invasion shows how climate change, global shipping, and nature's power combine to create a threat that is very hard to control. What do you think about the idea of crab invasion? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on your favorite celebrity stories. See you there.